Buddhism, we talk about the three marks of existence, or sometimes they'll say the three jewels. Like there are three things to contemplate if you're interested in Buddhism. One of them is impermanence. The other is suffering. Anicca, anatta, and whatever the third one is. Not coming to me at the moment, old age. But you can kind of understand what the Buddha talks about when he says suffering or stress. This our lives have woven into it. Even on a good day, there's frustrations, suffering, stress, and we need to learn how to live with that, work with that, come to grips with it, understand it makes sense. Impermanence also makes sense. Things come and go. Emotions come and go. People come and go. People, places, and things. Change is part of life. And things are constantly changing. That makes sense. And then you get to not self or no self. And most average people go, what? What is he talking about? I'm not a self. Who's here then? Right? And so it is quite confusing to people who are interested in Buddhism and students of Buddhism. And I thought I would talk about that. I think I came to Long Beach meditation somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago. Victor was teaching. And I picked Long Beach meditation because I could park, one, and it worked out with the kids in their schedule, and it really changed everything, my whole life, in a good way. And one of the times we were talking before the sit, and one of my friends had given me a book on Buddhism, and as a way to thank her, I said to her, oh, thank you so much for that book. I keep picking it up and putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. Every time I pick it up, I see something else. It's like there's always something different to learn. And she said to me, her answer was, of course there's something different. There isn't a you who's picking up the book, right? No self, not self. And I recently told this story to Thanissaro Bhikkhu, someone I study with, one of my teachers, also known as Ajahn Jeff, and he just laughed and rolled his eyes. He goes, oh, of course there's a you with a book, So you could see this is quite a confusing teaching. What does the Buddha mean? And for those of you who have been around, there are a lot of really good jokes about this no self. Like, if there isn't a self, whose arthritis is this? All right, that's a good one. I'll read you a few, but then we'll have to stop and get serious, because I think Jokai would like that. But anyway, I'll read you a few of these silly jokes. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Forget this, and attaining enlightenment will be the least of your problems, right? Or, Zen is not easy. It takes effort to attain nothingness. And then what do you lose? Nothing. So, we have a lot of jokes on this. This one is from a Jewish perspective. The Torah says, love your neighbor as yourself. The Buddha says there is no self. So maybe we're off the hook. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to talk about this was Thanissaro Bhikkhu wrote a little book called Not Self Q&A. And you can download this book for free on the internet or write to the monastery and get a copy. But he really addresses this issue of what did the Buddha mean when he said, not self or no self. And he makes a really good point. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the book and then talk about my point of view on this, that is my point of view and not anyone else's. So very often when we hear no self or not self, the things we begin to question is, do I have a body or is there no body? Is this body mine? What is this physicality real? That's one thing people will start to talk about. Are we infinite or finite? Do we survive death? Do we not survive death? Are we one with the cosmos? Am I the cosmos? Is the cosmos and I one? Are we separate or are we interconnected, right? When I was a young person in New York and we would go up, all the gurus came back then. I won't tell you when that was, but you can guess. And we'd go up to the ashram with the particular guru and they would chant in Sanskrit. And I remember one of the chants were, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, immortal self am I, immortal self am I. And I'd chant this every week and I'd be like, what is an immortal self? And is it I? And who is that? Right? It gets so weird, right? And so we can ask all these questions, and if you want to read about this, wow, you could be reading volumes and volumes. Am I the wave or am I the ocean? Or am I just a wave in the ocean? Do I dissolve into the ocean? And Thanissaro Bhikkhu's point is that asking these questions is not worth paying attention to. The answers get you nowhere. And he suspects through his he's a scholar, and through his reading and understanding of the Pali Canon, that the Buddha never answered these questions directly because he wasn't interested in answering it, because he didn't think it got anybody anywhere. In anything, it just reinforced thinking and self. So in Thanissaro Bhikkhu's opinion and interpretation of the teachings, he's like, let go of questioning it, it's a waste of time. You know, like that saying, meditating on your belly button or something, you know, right? It's just thinking. What they're interested in and what is worth paying attention to is not defining who you are and who you are not, but it's knowing the process of how you go about defining who you are. And that he's pointing to, the Buddha is pointing to a process to investigate, a way of understanding ourselves, to free ourselves from this suffering, this unnecessary suffering, this liberating ourselves, this release into literally freedom from suffering. Oh, I had another joke down here. Why was the Buddhist coroner fired? He kept making the cause of death birth. You know. How much ego do you need? Just enough so that you don't step in front of a bus. Right? So we can laugh about this, but he's really saying to us that you kind of need a self to understand what a self is. You kind of need a self to practice. That there has to be a healthy sense of self, and that healthy sense of self is a strategy to know what the self is and what it's not for liberation. So it's not that there isn't a self in his thinking. We need a self to understand what is not self. There has to be a self. There has to be some volition and some interest. And that sense of self, that healthy self, helps us do the work that we need to do if you want to be on a Buddhist path. So we're looking at what the function is of a healthy self. It takes self-effort to be on the path. And the question is, in what ways? And I remembered when I wrote this talk about a month ago, I was thinking about it, I remembered a particular guru that I sat with, an Indian guru, in the 70s or 80s. And one of her lines was, to be on the path, you need self-effort and grace. So Thanissaro Bhikkhu is saying the same thing, that self-effort, a sense of self that is ardent, is part of getting on that boat that the Buddha talks about, getting on the raft to get to the other shore. And what are the qualities of this self-effort? For one thing, it takes, in truth, investment. Right? This is the self-effort. You all had to kind of clean up and park your car and get here. And then you had to agree to sit in silence and use some concentration for 30 minutes. Right? It takes money, it takes time. For those of us who are serious, we will plan a retreat. We have to say no to family and friends. We have to give ourselves time, so you have to kind of study and understand the message of the Four Noble Truths, the suffering, clinging, freedom from clinging. What is all that? That has to be known, contemplated, and seen through. And to also really know the ways in which we cling, to release. And sometimes we don't see it clearly for a while. We're like kind of, tea bags, when you make a cup of tea in the morning, like English breakfast tea, you've got to really let that tea bag steep and steep and steep and steep. So there's investment. It has to be digested. So investment is really important. The fact that you're sitting here is self-effort. That you made it. It's a holiday and it's Sunday at 3. I could be watching Netflix in my pajamas very easily, but no, this is a self-effort. It takes a self to do it. Particularly in this culture, which isn't really about doing nothing, right, and being quiet. It takes interest. What are these Four Noble Truths about? What are the causes of suffering, and how do we release from it? What is the Eightfold Path, and how do I live it? What is right effort, right understanding? All of these things require a me being willing to be involved in it. And it takes intention to live the Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, non-harming and right view. And I'll tell you a short little story about that. About being on the path, we have to agree to no harm, to not harming. In speech, in the way we live, in the way we work. And as that tea bag seeping in this hot boiling water, right? It has to really infiltrate your being. You have to live it. It's not true till you live it, right? And you really study it and contemplate it. And this summer I went away to a conference, and the conference was a little pricey. It was a little expensive, but I wanted to go. It had some psychology, some mindfulness, and I read in the, in the application, that if you would volunteer to work in the hall and be an usher and help set up, you could get a $300 discount on your tuition. And I thought, oh, that's a good deal. I can do that. I can stand at the door and meet and greet and help people sit down and run the mic or hand out pamphlet, whatever it is. So, that'll be fine with me. And I get to the first meeting, and this wasn't going to be what I thought it was. No problem, a piece of cake. There were personalities and roles and ideas, so more than I ever thought there could be in being an usher in a large hall for about 800 people. I didn't think it was going to be complicated. Well, it was a little complicated, and it was looking a little stressful. And the next few days went on, and I was trying to do my part that I volunteered for, and there were people, places, and things. It just was not going well. The personalities weren't going well. There were just clashes and asks, and being asked to move some heavy things that I couldn't move, or standing in a place that I didn't think was okay, and some rules. There were rules. I didn't understand the rules. The rules seemed quite arbitrary. There's just how things go. And I noticed the second or third day this anger rising up in me, really getting angry. And I was sort of telling jokes about the anger and not owning the anger at all. I was making believe I wasn't angry. I was laughing, I wasn't being honest about that. And the next day and the next day I was getting angrier. And then there was a moment where I was dealing with this group of people where I noticed myself getting mean, hostile, like being cutting, really not being nice. Like I'd crossed the line into not a nice person, right? And a little more time went on, and someone who in this group was a little different and sort of was coming into my personal space and invading it a bit. And I noticed thoughts of harm. Like really, just like I was really, and because I've been practicing for a long, long time, it's like the Buddhism, just, these things that we kind of swim in and teach, I was noticed, I have crossed into harming. I'm not being pleasant. I'm not being nice. Now I'm in ill will. I'm wishing this person ill will. And this anger is not helping the energy of this group. And that's where, it takes a self. It's not no self. It takes a self to say, I have made a commitment not to harm, not to have ill will, not to break up and be a downer in a group or be negative or disrupt a group. I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to talk negatively about someone. Like, these are the things we agree on in the Eightfold Path. And I just immediately went up to that person running it and said, I am terribly sorry. I cannot volunteer. And I'm willing to give you $300 back. And that's what happened, right? Because it's the self is deciding to sit, to wake up early, to read, to understand. That takes someone, right? So, and Thanissaro Bhikkhu goes into this a little bit more, so I'll give you a few minutes of how he describes this. Let me open this up. he says that there's intention to look at the way we cling to stuff that causes suffering, right? You have to want to look at it. It has to be meaningful to you. That's a you. And what do we cling to? I'll go into that a little bit just to honor the book. But we cling to things about our body, right? You know, the wrinkles in my face and the knee that doesn't work so well. And the body that was, 20 now at this age, right? There are many ways we cling to the body and we believe we're a body, and there's a suffering that is appropriate suffering and extra suffering. But that's a different talk. Feeling tone, I love that movie. I hate that movie. It was a great flight. It wasn't a great flight. I loved the food. I hated the food. My relative at Thanksgiving annoyed me. That one I love. And we get caught and cling. It's not so much that we have feelings and wants and dislikes. It's the way we hook on and cling that gets us. And he talks about this. And well, let me give you more. The mental labels, our opinions, words, the way we identify with things, right? One of my friends that I sat with here, she comes in, sits in the hall, goes, I hate that painting. I can't look at it. I've got to sit away, right? And, it's this whole world we create with our mind. I kind of, sometimes I enjoy the angel up there, It's just to see the way we insert a self is what he's talking about. And the most interesting one are the fabrications, the stories we tell. And I'm an excellent novelist in my own life. I tell lots of stories. And when we can begin to see a story as a story, it's a liberating factor. There's a lot of freedom there. So he says, we think we're the owner of these things, and we believe we're inside them, and they're within us, and we're merged with them. This is kind of really deep, intense stuff, but there's a way you could see what is you and not you. And the way we feed and cling and create this suffering. And when I go back to this conference that I was telling you about my ill will, I also had ill will towards myself, because I said to myself, and this is an example of this teaching, unfolding in real time. I said to myself, I was so angry when that person stepped in my personal space, and I could feel this ill will and harm, like I felt kind of. I was like, oh my God, you've been practicing all these years, and what, you still had these feelings, and why couldn't you get along, and why couldn't you just be calm and peaceful, and why weren't you just smiling and doing with the, Well, that was ill will towards self. I was creating a self. I wanted a certain self to be in the conference. I wanted a certain way to be in this conference, and when it didn't happen, right, I was grasping to a self, the self I wanted to see in the conference, rather than the self that arrived and was there. Right? We personalize a lot of things, I think of this habit when I was growing up that families have, where they put their names on towels and napkins. You're in their house, their names are all over the house, the envelopes, everything has your name on it. In this teaching, we really begin to see this naming and identity, some of it is extra. It's just extra. And sometimes you have to kind of look back to see it. You have to look in the rear view mirror. I remember I was thinking about how a year or two ago I had decided to join an advocacy group of people who came together across the country to try to change a law. And it was going to be hard, and it was a hard investment and I've never done political work like that on that level. And I just had this this idea that I don't know what I'm doing. I was clinging to, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to take this next step. I don't know how to control this meeting. I don't know how to raise that money. I don't know what to say. And I look back to see the unnecessary clinging of I. Somehow we spent a year in this advocacy project and won against the odds, and none of us knew how to do it. You know, it just unfolded because we had right effort. Our hearts were in it, our interests were in it, we were in it out of love, out of caring. And that was what held us together and guided us. It wasn't really an I that knew something. It was really the heart leading the way and the willingness to show up. So when we talk about this teaching, no self, not self, what time do we stop? 4:30. Oh, okay, so I'm going to go real quick on this piece. You know, it's like a coin. There are two sides to the coin, so there's a flip side, right? Two truths could be true and opposite. And that is what this teacher talked about when she talked about grace. Because even though it took self-effort to get here and to sit for 30 minutes and to contemplate the Dharma, there's a lot of grace. There's a lot of not you in being here, right? We needed oxygen to breathe. We needed a cart. We needed money. We needed time. We need kind of peace. There isn't a civil war, at least not now, right? There has to be some calm in the world. There has to be some good health, right? If I'm on retreat and it's peaceful, the mind is concentrated, and I'm learning something, and I'm sitting deeply, it's really because of all the people that got together to create the right conditions to have a still mind. It wasn't just me sitting. It was everyone, all my teachers before me, right? And all the people who uphold the Dharma and who work at centers and do everything. It's not me, right? Am I my kidney? Am I telling my kidney, cleanse my blood, right? Am I telling my heart, beat, and, keep beating, keep pumping oxygen and blood? Am I the one who tells my heart that? No, my heart just does that. My kidney does that. The world has oxygen. We get food. And so in Buddhism, we say there are many causes and conditions that are not you, that you take to be you. So just being here is grace. Just being here, doing this, has meant the teachers for thousands of years passing it on, right? Someone understanding Pali and interpreting it. The board of this organization, the volunteers, the 20 or 30, I don't know how many years LBM has been around, right? A city working. Kindness, people caring. Your family letting you go. You have enough resources to be able to sit and come and read books. Some people are just have no resources. They're starving. They're barely living, right? There's a grace that is not you. And in Buddhism, we kind of say, contemplate what isn't you. How unstable, how unfixed, right? I didn't say I need this much oxygen to breathe, to sit here. I don't even know how my voice works, right? So there's self-effort and there is grace, or causes and conditions that are beyond my sense of I.
Hi, I'm Franz with Long Beach Meditation. Your gracious generosity makes this programming possible. If you found this video to be of value, please consider making a donation here. If you'd like to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to stay in touch with Long Beach Meditation, click here to subscribe. Thank you, and may all beings be happy.